All right, so we're at lecture 4 on the dropping ashes on the Buddha class here at Buddha Dharma University. So lecture 4 is going to be on made by thinking. So previously we looked at the Heart Sutra, the Diamond Sutra, and then Sing Song's answers to what is Zen. And then his teachings on don't know mind, before thought mind, primary point, what am I or what is this, don't know. So we try to keep this don't know mind. Why? Because, right, enlightenment is before thinking, waking up is before thought, and it's difficult, right? How do we keep don't know mind? We practice, but but so much is made by thinking, thinking. That's basically what we do, right? Our days are just spent in thought. So, how does the Zen master help his students when they can't put it all down? So, we're going to start on page 3, number 1. I know we covered this in lecture 2 as well. So Zen is understanding yourself. So lecture 4 is he talks about, made by thinking. So in a cookie factory, different cookies are baked in the shape of animals, cars, people, and airplanes. They all have different names and forms, but they are all made from the same dough, and they all taste the same. In the same way, all things in the universe, the sun, the moon, the stars, mountains, rivers, people, and so forth, have different names and forms, but they are all made from the same substance. So, goes on to say, universe organized into pairs of opposites, light and darkness, man and woman, sound and silence, good and bad, but all these opposites are mutual because they are made from the same substance. Their names and forms are different, but their substance is the same. So names and forms are made by your thinking. That'll be our first note. If you are not thinking and have no attachment to name and form, then all substance is one. Your don't know mind cuts off all thinking. This is your substance. So there's this idea, right? Name and form. So if we're thinking, we're making name and form. And it's, kind of the teaching and on this Zen circle, right? If a Zen master asks you if something is the same or different, me and the mountain, are we the same or different? And I were to say different, right? He's going to say you're attached to name and form. If I say they're the same, he's going to say, well, you're attached to emptiness. So how can you win, right? So we'll see that as we go along. I mean, it's kind of a teaching device to help us get beyond thought. Let's take a quick look, see if there's anything else in that one we wanted to cover for lecture 4. Towards the top of page 4, he goes on about the, this is the 4 blind men touching different parts of the elephant, and then arguing over who's right. So substance has no name and form. Energy, mind, God, matter are all name and form. Substance is the absolute. Having name and form is having opposites. So the whole world is like the 4 blind men fighting among themselves. Not understanding yourself is not understanding the truth. So I guess a corollary would be understanding yourself is understanding the truth. So what am I? What is this? Don't know. We return to before thought mind. All right, so let's look at number 4 on page 13. So we also covered this one in lecture 3. Again, we'll skip the letter. So, so when all thinking, we're on the page of top 13, when all thinking has been cut off, like our diamond sword, you become an empty mind. This is before thinking. So your before thinking mind, my before thinking mind, all people's before thinking minds are the same. This is your substance, your substance, my substance, and the substance of the universe become one. So the tree, the mountain, the cloud, and you become one. So then I ask you, are the mountain and you the same or different? If you say the same, I will hit you 30 times. If you say different, I will hit you 30 times. Why? The mind that becomes one with the universe is before thinking. Before thinking, there are no words. Same and different are opposite words. They are from the mind that separates all things. That is why I will hit you if you say either one. So what would be a good answer? If you don't understand, only keep a don't know mind for a while. So he goes on to say, if you are attached to words, you cannot return to your true self. If you are not attached to words, soon you will attain enlightenment. It's funny, right? Because thinking makes enlightenment, but if you're not attached to your words, you will attain enlightenment. So, but going on to about enlightenment, the bottom of page 15, when you keep a clear mind, the whole universe is you. You are the universe, so you have already attained enlightenment. Wanting enlightenment is only thinking. It is something extra, like painting legs on the picture of a snake. Already the snake is complete as it is. Already the truth is right before our eyes. So what is he saying there? So when we are thinking, we are painting legs on the snake. We're not looking at the truth. We are not seeing things as they are, as it is, right before our eyes. So it looks like that's the last one for lecture 4 in there. All right, so let's see. Oh, looks like there is one more in here. Where is it? So in the lecture, the person, or the letter, the person who wrote it said, you said that Zen books in which you read shattered your beliefs. Sing Song says, well, that's very good, but shattered is not shattered. Before, your view was a deluded view. Now it is a correct view. What you believed before was like wanting to hold the rainbow, but the rainbow soon disappears. It never really existed. All things are like this. Before you believed that all things existed, but now you understand that all things are emptiness. So you must take one step further. Believing or not believing, shattered or not shattered, this is still the area of opposites. You must throw all these opposites away, then the truth will be only like this. Shattered is still an attachment to name and form. Yet the absolute, or true emptiness, is before thinking. So, it's trying to help this person get beyond thought, right? Beyond this duality. Beyond opposites. So I'll put that on our list here. So next on our list, we'll look at number 5 on page 19. Inside, outside. All right, well, speaking of opposites. This one, it looks like we're only doing this one in lecture 4, so let's cover the whole thing. So one Thursday evening after a Dharma talk at the New Haven Zen Center, a student asked Sung-san, it seems that in Christianity, God is outside me, whereas in Zen, God is inside me. So God and I are one. Is this correct? Oh boy. So lots of thinking, right? Now we have Christianity, we have God, Um, we have inside me, outside me, God and I are one. So many people have great attachments to their thinking on religion. And it doesn't even matter if they've studied their religion or not, if they believe in their religion strongly or not. They still have very strong attachments to these ideas. I mean, it's funny, a great example of that was um, I was with a bunch of folks and we were talking about meditation. Now, they know I'm a Zen teacher and that I've had a lot of experience with meditation, doing meditation, teaching meditation. Um, but every one of them had their own idea on meditation and what it was and how it worked best for them and what they were trying to do and determine during meditation, on and on and on. Yet, when asked if they actually did meditation, there was almost none that had spent any time doing meditation, maybe a few minutes here or there, but that was it. But they were all attached to their idea. And so, and that's just meditation. Let's put the whole ball of religion into things, right? So, so how is Sung-san going to deal with this question? He says, where is inside? Where is outside? Student says, inside is in here, outside is out there. So how can you separate? Where is the boundary line? I'm inside my skin and the world is outside it. So this is your body's skin. Where is your mind's skin? He says, student says, mind has no skin. Then where is mine? It's inside my head. Ah, your mind is very small. You must keep your mind big. Then you will understand that God, Buddha, and the whole universe fit into your mind. And that's a very interesting point, right? The entire universe, or even the multiverse, whatever the physicists are working on these days, right, is vast, it's immense, it's really gigantic, infinite, yet somehow we can fit it all inside of our mind. Is that amazing? So anyway, so he's trying to help this student. He says, he holds up his watch and he says, is this watch inside your mind or outside it? And the student says, outside. Sung-san says, well, if you say outside, I will hit you. If you say inside, I will still hit you. The student says, I don't care. I still say it's outside. And Sung-san says, well, if you say it's outside, how do you know it's a watch? Does your mind fly out of your eyes and touch the watch and fly back inside? Student says, I see the watch. I'm inside and the watch is outside. Sung-san, a few moments of silence and says, don't make inside or outside, okay? And the student, still looking doubtful, bowed. So what do we know about this student? Right? He's attached. He's attached to his thinking. So with great compassion, the Zen master tried to help him get beyond his thinking, but he is unable to. I mean, he's able to help us through this letter, but that student is still stuck. Stuck on his ideas, his concepts. So hopefully, with additional teaching, he was able to wake up. So let's look at page 34. Actually, on page 33, we're going to look at what to do about noise. Let me just make my little note here. My notes got a little mixed up because I recorded this entire lecture, and then when I played it back, for some reason I sounded like a chipmunk. So I had to redo it here. So my notes have some notes on them from the first time I did it, which are confusing me this time. So anyway, hopefully I will get better at that. So we're looking at number 13, noisy quiet made by thinking. So what to do about noise? And this is an interesting one, right? Because we all have these ideas on when we meditate and noise. So the student asked Sung-san, he says, I am disturbed by noise when I sit Zen. What can I do about this? And this is another hook, right? We have this idea that meditation should be sitting in a quiet room with the lights however we want, nice and quiet. We should not be disturbed. It should be this perfect situation, maybe a few candles, a little incense. Wouldn't that be wonderful? And and it's just an idea, right? I mean, okay, that's the perfect situation. If we can meditate in that perfect situation, great. But what about when we're not in that situation? So Sun-san asked the student, what color is this rug? The student says, blue. Is it quiet or noisy? Quiet. Who makes it quiet? The student shrugged his shoulders. Sung-sang said, you do. Noisy and quiet are made by your thinking. If you think something is noisy, it is noisy. If you think something is quiet, it is quiet. Noisy is not noisy. Quiet is not quiet. True quiet is neither quiet nor noisy. If you listen to the traffic with a clear mind, don't know mind, without any concepts, it is not noisy. It is only what it is. Noisy and quiet are opposites. The absolute is only like this. So there were a few moments of silence, and Sun-sang said, what is the opposite of blue? The student said, don't know. So, right, the Sung-sang's always trying to get his students to don't know, right? Don't know. And that's a great question to get to it, right? So finally Sung-sang says, blue is blue, white is white, this is the truth. Right? Not thinking answer. Blue is blue, white is white. So the funny thing about this, right, is because noisy and quiet are all made by our thinking. For example, to paint more legs on this snake, as it were, I used to sit at the Long Beach Zen Center, which I think is, it was actually called Golden Wind Zen Center at that time. And it was right on Long Beach Boulevard. Just, you know, fairly busy street, especially depending on the time of the day. And so when I first went there, it was noisy, right? All these cars going back and forth. After going there for a while, now noisy had a different meaning, right? If there was, you know, hundreds of cars, it was noisy. If there was not so many cars, it was quiet, right? Well, before any car was noisy. So it's just thinking, 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 changing, changing, changing. Here's my little subliminal advertising. So, so noisy and quiet are made by your thinking. So number 14 will be next. You must become completely crazy. There we go. So one day a visitor came to Providence Zen Center and asked Sung-sang, if I study Zen, will I attain enlightenment? The big question. These all start with these giant hooks. So why do you want to attain enlightenment? The visitor said, I'm upset and I don't feel free. Why don't you feel free? I guess I have too many attachments. So Sung-sang, very direct. Why don't you just cut through all these attachments? They all seem very real. So how is he going to teach this person? He says, no one knows when they will die. Could be next year, next week, next 5 minutes. So put it all down. At this very moment, keep your mind as though you were already dead. Then all your attachments will disappear and it won't matter whether you study Zen or not. Right now you think, I am alive, I am strong. So you have many desires, many attachments. Only think, I am dead. A dead man has no desires. So it's almost using thinking to combat thinking here. So the visitor said, how can I be alive and dead? Sung San said, dead is not dead. We have eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. But the Heart Sutra says that in emptiness, there are no mind, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. So without my six senses, I have no hindrance. It's very easy. So if I'm already dead, seeing is not seeing. So the student says, well, how can I practice being dead? Sung Sang says, only keep the great question, what am I? So now let me ask you, what are you? And the student says, I'm one. Hopefully we can see. Okay, more thinking. Where does one come from? From God. God is one. God? Do you understand God? No. So you say one, you say God. This is wrong. If you make one, it is one. If you make God, it is God. All this is thinking. Without thinking, what are you? Nothing. So do we see this, right? This poor student is so stuck that they're now going to answer with another thinking answer, nothing. And why is that a thinking answer, right? Because thinking automatically makes opposites. There's something, there's nothing. So Sung San hits him and says, this is pain. Can nothing feel pain? And the visitor smiled, so clearly it wasn't a hard hit or anything. So before thinking, your mind was like a sheet of paper. Then you wrote down one and God and nothing and so on and so forth. When you cut off all thinking, you erase all these names and forms and return to your original emptiness. What am I? What is this? Don't know. So when you keep the great question, you keep the mind that doesn't know. No words, no speech, no one, no God, no nothing, no mind. This is very important. Only this. Keep, don't know, mind. So the visitor then said, my friends think I'm crazy because I am interested in Zen. And Sung San said, craziness is good. Crazy people are happy, free. They have no hindrance. But since you have many attachments, you are only a little crazy. This is not crazy enough. You must become completely crazy. Then you will understand. So, I mean, I know people, we've probably all met people who love their thoughts, are attached to their thinking, believe all their thoughts. So these whole ideas of what we do here in Zen, of questioning our thoughts, not attaching to our thoughts, probably does seem crazy. You know, what am I? What is this? And these, you know, these people just live their lives without ever getting into this, so we are crazy to them. But this craziness is good. So crazy people are free, they have no hindrance. All right, so let's go on to page 51, which is number 22. The moon of clear mind, which we covered last lecture. So we'll just cover a little bit of it this time. And it follows just what we were talking about. You must not be attached to this thinking. So I'm at the bottom of page 51. So, you know, he's talking about don't know. You must cut off this thinking and only do hard training. And the student was stuck on this idea of the question growing, and Sung San cut that off and said what is important is one moment of clear mind. Clear mind is before thinking. If you experience this mind, you have already attained enlightenment. Ah, the big E word. If you experience this for a short time, even for one moment, this is enlightenment. All the rest of the time you may be thinking, but you shouldn't worry about thinking. It is just your karma. You must not be attached to thinking. You must not force it to stop or force clear mind to grow. It will grow by itself as your karma gradually disappears. So, what is karma? You know, he talks about karma a little bit later too. We'll see that as hindrance. And there's, you know, all kinds of karma, right? You know, cause and effect, but I also have karma, right? And I'm an American, so I have American karma. Grew up in Illinois, I have Illinois karma. So, you know, we have that sort of karma, and then we also have things that I've done, things that I've thought, things that were taught to me. So I have all those sorts of karma that I have to cut through. They've made attachments. So we'll see more of that as we go along, so don't get too hung up on the idea of karma. All right, so now we will move on to number 28, which is page 65. So this one starts on page 63 with a letter from a student, and it's called Porcupines in Rat Holes. So we'll skip the letter part. Thank you for your long letter. I love those. So we're going to talk about drinking, sex, and drugs. These actions are neither good nor bad, but people get attached to these actions very easily. Young people in America are especially attached to sex. And Zen master Wan Hyo says that being involved with sex is like a porcupine who crawls into a rat's hole. Easy to go in, but impossible to back out no matter how hard he tries. People make new karma through their attachment actions. Karma means hindrance. Hindrance is suffering. If someone is not attached to drinking, sex, etc., there is no hindrance. So before we go on, drinking, drugs, and sex being attachment, people are attached to ideas too, right? Ideas about drinking, drugs, and sex. If people think it's cool to be doing one or all three of those, whether they even like it or not, could override. They could do it just to be part of the crowd, to be popular, etc. So that's more ideas, more attachment, and then the things we do, right? Drinking drugs can get us into all kinds of trouble. They can injure us. People can end up schizophrenic if they get the wrong drugs, I guess. I don't know. And sex can lead to, lifelong STDs or children or bad relationships or hurting people because, only caring about small I instead of big I. And so much karma can be made with these things. So you must, so as a teacher, he's telling her you must check to find out if these people are attached to drink and sex. So many people think I am not attached to such and such, but I am not attached is attachment thinking. I am not attached is the same as I am attached. Let that sink in for a minute. I am not attached is the same as I am attached. So how do we get out of that, right? So we go back to what the complete question. What am I? What is this? Don't know mind. So thinking makes attachments. So it goes on to say that, the actions themselves are not good and bad, only the intention is important. Top of page 66. If you think something is good, it is good. If you think it is bad, it is bad. If you want to cut off all thinking and all karma, you must practice Zen. Now, that's true to a point, right? Sometimes we think things, but they're out of tune with reality, right? Sometimes we might think something is good, but then we do it and we feel bad, right? So we have to learn from those actions. But in general, he's saying if you think, your mind makes everything. If you want to cut off all thinking and all karma, you must practice Zen. So let's move on to one of my personal favorites. Number 37 on page 82. Buddha is grass shoes. So some students were talking to Sing Song at the coffee shop. They were talking about a mantra. Apparently a group was doing the mantra Nam Yoho Renge Kyo. No idea if I'm pronouncing it correctly. And the students said that seemed to be quite a powerful practice, but when I asked them what it meant, they didn't know and said it wasn't important to know. Is this correct? And Sung Song said, in practice of this kind, correct understanding is not necessary. It does not matter whether you know this mantra is the name of the Lotus Sutra or that Kwanseum Bolsul is the name of the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara. Another student said, well, I've heard that certain mantras have power inherent in them. that Sanskrit sounds, for example, have some links to the energy of the universe. Does it make a difference which mantra you use? So another one of these big ideas, right? People have this idea that if I say a certain mantra, it has power. If I say these words are more important than those words. And this is a big hang up for people. So I love this answer. Sung San says the three things are important. First, your reason for doing the mantra. Second, strong faith that the mantra works. And third, constant practice. So then the student says, so you can chant Coca-Cola all day and it will work? And Sung San says, if someone tells you the words Coca-Cola have power in them and you really believe that, then Coca-Cola will work for you. Right? So our mantra is, what am I, or what is this? Don't know. So why do we do that mantra? Because we're trying to get to don't know mind, to keep clear mind, to wake up to our true nature. Second, strong faith that the mantra works. Many people have done this mantra. Many people have done this practice. I mean, this don't know mind did not just come from Sung San. So it's been around for a long time. And we have faith that it works. And third, constant practice. So we're not just doing our mantra trying to keep don't know mind while sitting on the cushion for 5, 10, 30 minutes a day or whatever. We're keeping it in all of our affairs, right? I mean, just trying to keep clear mind. So he goes on to tell a story about this, about basically it's a monk who misheard something and kept that as his mantra and woke up. So it's definitely worth reading. But based on where we are in the lecture, I'm going to skip ahead to number 48, page 105. So we're going to do this one next week as well. A little thinking, a little sparring. So we'll just focus on the thinking part. So, all right, so a student's asking Sun Song about, they say that you reach a point in Zen meditation where there's a cessation of thought, or alternatively, there's a cessation of the watcher, although thoughts continue. Could you comment on that? Big hook again, right? Thinking, thinking, thinking. And someone, all right, so now we have a watcher, a cessation of thought, or is it a cessation of the watcher? Blah, blah, what is it? So Sung San says, where does thinking come from? Student pointed to his forehead and said, it's supposed to be here. Where does thinking go? Don't know. Well, what is thinking? Something happens, I guess, in awareness. Well, Sun Song says, thinking is a name which people make. Pointing to a piece of paper, the name for this is paper. If you ask a cat what it is, he will not say it's a piece of paper. River, mountain, sun, moons are all names, right? And they're amazing names too, right? The Mississippi is this river that runs, the entire height of the country, right? And, or, not quite. But anyway, so, but we just say Mississippi River, and that's it. Idea, lying on a map. Does that contain everything the Mississippi is? No, right? It's just idea. So, they're just names. So people's thinking makes all these things. Thinking is your mind. Mind is no mind. So thinking is no thinking. So the student says, I realize that, but how do you stop thinking? Okay, I will teach you. Come here. The student came to the front of the room and sat down in front of Sansa, who handed him a cup of water and said, drink this. The student drank. Sansa said, is it hot or cold? The student was silent for a few minutes, then said, it tastes good. So do we see the student's mistake? It tastes good. The question was, is it hot or cold? Right? An opposites question. And Sun Song said, this is thinking. When you drank the water, you are not thinking. When I asked you if it was hot or cold, you were thinking, what answer is good? This is thinking. When you drank, you only drank. Then holding up the piece of paper, what is this? The student was silent. Why don't you answer? Well, you want me to say it's a piece of paper. Sung-san said, very late, many thinking. So, you know, so he's trying to help the student get beyond thinking. And then the other part of that is in lecture 5, so we'll cover the rest of that later, next week. All right, next we're going to skip on to page 111, number 49, which actually starts on page 107. All right, so in the middle of page 108, the student asks Zen Master Sung-san. Most of this we'll cover next week, so I'm just going to cover the thinking part now. He says, what is good? And the student says, good is thinking. Well, who made good? I did. Where does I come from? I comes from I. Well, you understand the word I, but you don't understand the true I. Where does I come from? From thinking. Thinking is also a word. Where does thinking come from? And the student was silent for a long while and said, I really don't know. Yes, this is the don't know mind. So he's trying to help his student get beyond thinking. So the student goes on to ask about being involved in conversations and sharing his opinions and things like that. And that he doesn't like to do that because, you know, makes him feel like an individual, separate entity, feel his ego more strongly. And Sung-san says, when you are walking, your hand moves back and forth. This is not thinking action. So if you talk, don't be attached to talking. No attachment thinking is not thinking. If you are attached to your thinking, this creates karma. If you are not attached, you don't create karma. So, we talked a little bit about karma before, and here it is again. If you are attached to your thinking, this creates karma. If you are not attached, you don't create karma. So, put that on our list. So now this idea of thinking versus attainment, right? So this is how the Zen master explains this. He says, if you understand emptiness, this is not emptiness, it is only a word. So this is very important, right? This idea of emptiness and trying to understand it, enlightenment, trying to understand that. So he says, you understand the word emptiness. Have you ever tasted kimchi? It is very hot. So when guests come to dinner, I tell them it's very hot, but they really don't know what this hot means until they experience it for themselves. So I give them a piece of kimchi. Ow, hot! So other people understand that it's hot, but they haven't tasted it. Once they taste it, then they understand what hot means. They have attained hot. So understanding hot is not the same as attaining hot. So, so people think they understand, but they haven't attained. So understanding emptiness and attaining emptiness are different. So don't make, emptiness and thinking, don't just make them concepts. Kind of like this whole idea of mindfulness, right? If there's thought, I'm being mindful, well, no, you're not, right? So, all right, so let's go to number 51 on page 113. So samadhi versus satori. So student asks Sung Sung, I understand that samadhi is a state that takes quite a while to attain. However, satori is sort of an instant enlightenment. How do they differ? Thinking, right? More made by thinking. So Sung San says, if you're thinking, they're different. If you're thinking, samadhi and enlightenment are different. If you cut off thinking, samadhi and enlightenment are the same. But if we try to explain them, they're different, right? So subtle difference, right? Like thinking, thinking, thinking. So I guess if we're going to be thinking, we have to explain them somewhat differently. So enlightenment, samadhi is one mind. Enlightenment is only like this. One mind like this. These are different, but they are the same. So when we do the mantra, there is only the mantra. All thinking is cut off. When I look, there is only the mantra. Here, only the mantra. This is samadhi. So if someone asks me what color is this wall, I answer Om Mane Padme Hum. Someone asks me what is this? Om Mane Padme Hum. But enlightenment, what color is this wall? White. What is this? Hand. So samadhi is only one mind, not moving mind. So the student says, then it's the same as satori. It's like, it's not the same. Yeah, it's the same and not the same. Right? Stuck on thinking. All right, so next, number 55 on page 122. Or 121, it looks like. Plastic flowers, plastic mind. So at the Zen Center, they were going to be having a ceremony, and people came with all kinds of stuff. And so one woman brought a large bouquet of plastic flowers, and she put it on the altar. Well, actually, she presented it to a student of Sun San, and the student did not like them, apparently, because he hid them under a pile of coats. But later, another woman found them, and with great delight, put them on a vase on the altar. And the student was very upset. He went to Sung Sang and said, those plastic flowers are awful. Can I take them off the altar and dump them? And Sung San said, it is your mind that is plastic. The whole universe is plastic. So his thinking made a plastic universe. The student said, what do you mean? And Sung San said, Buddha said, when one mind is pure, the whole universe is pure. When one mind is tainted, the whole universe is tainted. Every day we meet people who are unhappy. When their minds are sad, everything they see, hear, smell, taste, touch is sad. The whole universe is sad. When the mind is happy, the whole universe is happy. If you desire something, then you are attached to it. If you reject it, you are just as attached to it. So let that sink in. If you are attached to it, if you reject it, you are just as attached to it as if you desire it. Very important point. So in this case, being attached to a thing means it becomes a hindrance in your mind. Right, it's already on the list. So I don't like plastic. It's the same as I like plastic. Where else but in Zen class are you going to hear that? So both are attachments. So you don't like plastic flowers, so your mind has become plastic. The whole universe is plastic. Put it all down, and you won't be hindered by anything. You won't care whether they're plastic or real, whether they're on the altar or the garbage pail. This is true freedom. Must not be attached to name and form. And thinking makes name and form. So the student, though, still not convinced, apparently, says, but we're trying to make a beautiful Zen center here. How can I not care? Those flowers spoil the whole room. And the Zen master said, if somebody gives real flowers to Buddha, Buddha is happy. If someone else likes plastic flowers and gives them to Buddha, Buddha is also happy. Buddha is not attached to name and form. He doesn't care whether the flowers are real or plastic. He only cares about the person's mind. These women are offering plastic flowers, who are offering them, have pure minds, and their action is bodhisattva action. Your mind rejects them. So you have separated the universe into good and bad, beautiful and ugly. Your action is not bodhisattva action. Only keep Buddha's mind, then you will have no hindrance. So that's a great story, right? We separate the world into beautiful and ugly. When we become attached to beautiful and ugly, it's being attached to the same thing. Number 64 on page 142, which actually is a letter that starts on page 141. So it looks like the part for lecture 4. So he says, thinking is only thinking, suffering is only suffering. If you were to think, I want my mind to become clear, this would be bad thinking. When you are suffering, you must only suffer. So if you are not attached to your changing mind, then you will attain your true nature. So this is again made by thinking, right? Thinking, thinking, thinking. Mind is changing, changing, changing. If you're attached to your thinking, you're making karma, you're having a hindrance. If you are not attached to your thinking, then everything will be good. So you want to be a good Zen student, you want to be a good man, this is thinking. Put it down, put it all down. If you're always checking your mind, then that is very bad. Don't check your mind. So these are, always constantly thinking, thinking, thinking. Am I doing good? Is this what the Zen master wants to hear? Will people like me? Blah, blah, blah. Quit checking. All right? Just keep working towards clear mind. If you have, so true emptiness is before thinking. You must not be attached to anything that appears in your mind. So let's see. I'm kind of running low on time here, so let's run to page 210, number 88. Just in the middle here, it's just example of thinking again. Here is an example of correct teaching. Cold and hot are made by thinking. If you cut off all thinking, all opposites disappear. This is the absolute, so there is no good or bad, no dark and light, no cold, no hot. So before thinking, there are no words in speech. If you open your mouth, you are wrong to say. So to say no cold and no hot is also wrong. There is only cat, only hit. But this itself is being attached to emptiness. So in true emptiness, before thinking, you only keep a clear mind. All things just as they are. Red comes red, white comes white. So return to our Zen mirror. If we're not making thinking, red comes, red goes, white comes, white goes. If we are thinking, red comes, red goes, and we're like, where did red go? We want red back. So, so what is made by thinking? So as we went through some of his teachings on this, came up with a little list. So we got made by thinking. We have name and form, duality, inside, outside, enlightenment, noisy, quiet, karma, hindrance, attachment such as plastic flowers, opposites, I guess, which could be slightly different than duality, samadhi versus satori. This is all made by thinking, right? Name and form, thinking, thinking, thinking. So how do we get free from thinking? So in the next section, right, we don't attach, right? We don't attach to our thoughts. We're going to look at Dharma exchange, actually the next couple of lectures. So I'll see you next lecture and we'll start talking about that.